So we're starting off my initial impressions with the things I liked about Modern Warfare 2. I know it's just a beta, but I've obviously was able to play it early a couple different times, and there's certain things that stand out that I'm really liking about this game, and we'll dive into some of those before I get into things that I don't necessarily like, because that list is kind of long. Overall, they've got a very beautiful game this time around, very similar to 2019's Modern Warfare, with some slight improvements. Obviously, there's certain visual changes with the gun, which make it feel like really recoil-y. It's just more of a visual thing, the way the weapon shakes. There's a little bit of too much muzzle flash, but we'll talk about that more in the cons. The new weapon progression system, which a lot of people seem confused on, I think it's great, especially from a casual perspective and a grinding perspective. You're able to level up things, and it kind of forces everyone to use a variety of weapons to get all the attachments you want. And how that works is you go into the gunsmith and you have this progression system, which I think is great because you're able to level up this gun. It's going to level up very fast. We don't know the max level, but at least for the beta, this was up to level 19. Maybe that's going to be what the cap is. And then by leveling up the base M4, you're going to get access to 2 new weapons. And this isn't by your character level. You're going to get access to this 5.56 Icarus and the FTAC Recon, which allow you to get 2 new weapons, and you're able to utilize the attachments you unlocked within the M4. And as you level up those, you'll get 2 additional guns, which is the Hurricane and the M16, and the attachments you've unlocked throughout these will be universal among these. So if they decide to add weapons to the tree later on, you already have a ton of attachments. And if maybe the M16 has a particular meta attachment for the M4, you got to go through and level up and progress to get those things. So that might be a long one, but we'll kind of figure those things out as it comes. And this kind of makes it really nice, fast to level, and not like level 70. It takes 7 to 8 hours, even longer, and if you don't have double XP. Simple quality of life change, that is something that you notice quite a bit when it kills you, and that's prone blocking has been removed. If you prone next to some kind of wall, you don't really have that turn radius, it'll actually kind of kick you a little bit away from the wall so you can actually make that rotation. So it's not like you get caught and then your aim just stops like it would in previous Call of Duties. Other games have done this, but it's nice to see that Call of Duty has finally taken that step. On top of that, they have a third person mode, and the third person mode I'm not the biggest fan of. I think it looks cool, and I think for a certain type of gamer that wants to see their skin, whether it's the Fortnite game or just people that want something different, whether it's you play the Division or some of these other types of games that allow you to have that third person mechanic, there's certain differences that really make that game unique in its own way and still feel like COD. It's not necessarily for me, but I think it's a cool thing that actually works and functions pretty well. They still got to dial in some fine tuning on certain buggy things, but overall, I think it's a very cool option to be able to have that within the game. The other part, which is a saving grace for this game, is overall the maps we have played are the 4 within the beta. I've played 2 ground war maps. I've played the brand new Warzone 2, and then I've also played that Grand Prix map, which mysteriously disappeared and no one's talking about, from Call of Duty. But all the maps that I've played pretty much play pretty good. In terms of the multiplayer 6v6, these things play very well. Maybe you need 8v8 or 10v10, and some of them they feel a little bit big for the 6v6 player count, but overall they have nice wide flank routes, which are nice. They have 3 lanes with maybe some cuts in between, which make for really good play styles. Some power positions I think are a little bit broken, like the B flag from the angle on the building where you can kind of look down and look at B, where there's kind of a wall breach that they had to fix. But besides that, I think overall fairly good map design, especially when compared to Modern Warfare 2019, which was all about doors and stuff like that. I don't even find doors annoying in this. The doors that are there, they're not really obstructive or anything like that. So I think they've made huge strides in map design, and those are the things I liked, right? All good, COD, whatever. Then when it comes to stuff I didn't like, there's a ton of stuff, right? We have the mini-map doesn't function like you would want it, at least from a classic Call of Duty player, where if you fire unsuppressed weapon, you show up on the mini-map. The same way it works within Warzone, that's the way it's always worked for Call of Duty pretty much, until more recent Call of Duties where they kind of changed the philosophy to help casuals. On top of that, you have audio that is way too loud on the footsteps. If you decide to stand still, you'll be able to audibly hear where anyone's coming from, and it was kind of one of those things where you're going to be encouraged to stand still, because if you go for a flank, the person could be looking towards the middle of the map, but as you come around, they hear the footsteps, they're just going to turn around, pre-aim where you're coming from because you can't hear them, they can hear you, and then they're just going to pre-aim. So it leads to a lot of punishing gameplay where you really benefited to kind of stand still as much as possible, which is kind of something we saw within Modern Warfare 2019. And I think it's even stronger in this because the audio is very directionally clear. Sometimes it's buggy where maybe you don't hear someone, or it's a visual glitch where maybe they had dead silence, but overall you can kind of pinpoint, kind of like this guy's on this part of the map because I heard a footstep or a weapon reload. It's very clear, which is impressive, but it doesn't really work in a fast-paced Call of Duty when you have a TTK as fast as it is. So the TTK is very fast. You have the Minimap that works that way, and then on top of that, you have janky spawns. They use a system primarily of squad spawns, and those were introduced in Modern Warfare 2019, and they lead to a lot of wonky issues. And maybe you call in a UAV, you're pushing a player, it looks like they're a solo, and then when the pass comes through, then one of their teammates spawns next to them instead of in a designated spawn, the way Call of Duty is supposed to have spawns. And then now you're coming around the corner thinking you're challenging a 1v1, and the game has decided to put you in a 2v1 because maybe you're doing too good. I don't know how the logic works, but it'll just throw them on random teammates. So now when you're pressing a 1v2 or a 1v1, it becomes a 1v2 or even a 1v3. And this also leads to bad deaths. And I know you're gonna, if you're playing the game, you're gonna have these scenarios where you're going on a streak, you're doing good, you die once, then you spawn into a crappy spot where you die again, and you spawn into a crappy spot, you die again. Those are implications that these spawns are bad, and these are some of the worst spawns we have had in Call of Duty, right up there with Modern Warfare 2019. Cold War had some pretty solid spawns, but Treyarch tends to nail that part of it, and Vanguard kind of had wonky spawns in the beginning. They improved them, they were better, but they were nowhere near as good as the Treyarch spawn. So I don't know why they don't share that information, because Treyarch tends to have the best spawns in general. So hopefully they can fix that and dial that in, because even from a pro perspective on Call of Duty, that's just not good. Another thing that I think they just completely lied about based on the stuff I just talked about, they said they want to cater to different play styles. You got the Rusher, the Sentinel, and then you have the Flanker, I believe it's called. I don't really think they've done that because of the things I mentioned. Flanking is not all that great because you're audible, the UAVs work, you can't get ghosts till you get your 4th perk or whatever the case is. They've really mitigated that to where that the Sentinel player that just stands still is at the biggest advantage. There's always been campers in Call of Duty, but when you give them like 5 different tools to be able to know that somebody's going to be coming up on them and they can just pre-aim, it gives them too big of an advantage, right? Rushers had a huge disadvantage because if somebody's posted up mounted or something like that, the sprint to fire time when they're running around a corner, the gun draws up so slow for pretty much all the guns except for maybe like the MP5 or the Hurricane, and they have to be built for speed with almost no recoil control, that you can probably draw the weapon barely fast enough to land a bullet before you're instantly deleted, and that isn't really working. And the fast TTK kind of hurts the quick scopers or snipers, just because you get any kind of shot, you're already instantly dead. Why would you use a sniper? You know, the melee people, their footsteps are so loud you can't even hide that, so you eliminate a playstyle there. There's shotgunners, which I do not like, but they're still a playstyle. There's riot shielders, which they didn't give a riot shield in the beta, so it is what it is, but there's a riot shield that's going to be in the game. There's people who play that style. There is not accommodations for all of these styles pretty evenly. Like in previous CODs, you would get access to all of that, but right now it's primarily you're that Sentinel camper, and if you just commit to that play style, you'll go 12-1 every match, get full sets of streaks, call those in, pretty high KD, you enjoy the game. Because if you run around, you're going to get double-digit deaths. Almost every match that I was watching streamers play, I'm playing myself, pretty much everyone in the lobby has double-digit deaths, which is kind of like, hey, let's just try to get everyone in 1 KD as possible. And the other part of that is obviously skill-based matchmaking. Personally, I've never been a fan of skill-based matchmaking the way it's implemented, because it leads to worse connections. Worse connections lead to bullet reg issues and a lot of desync issues where you can shoot first, die first, which a lot of people are experiencing in the beta because it was a closed portion, and then the connectivity, there's not enough players. We're going to end up with even bigger issues when they're trying to make this matchmaking as strict as possible. On top of that, you really don't have any variety in your matches. I have to use the meta. I'm going to use only one weapon. I'm going to play a little bit slower because I know the mechanics favor me if I do not move. And then everyone kind of just post up and the game can go to time. Free for all, TDM, those modes will more often than not probably go to time once this game comes out. So you're gonna have to stick to objective game modes if you want any kind of kills. And then on top of that, skill-based matchmaking, when you make it as strict as it is, you end up with exploitation where people session join or do all these wonky things to get in a lower skilled lobby, which you might experience like on your first match of the game. It throws you into a pretty easy lobby. And then after about 2 or 3 matches, then you're either in those lobbies still because you're maybe just average or below average, or if you're anything above average, you're automatically playing for COD champs, which it is what it is. You just kind of know that that's how it works, and the game is not made for you. They're separating you so you can have a quote-unquote miserable experience after a couple matches, so that the other 80% can just be like, that doesn't even know the difference in the mechanics and just go around and do whatever they want and buy skins, because at the end of the day, it's about Activision making as much money as possible. Perfectly fine, their business, whether they're looking out for players, that's not what it is. It's about money. This game's menus have to be some of the worst we've ever had in Call of Duty. Even when making your loadout, like you can see here, it's very convoluted. You can go over here and then you can edit, and then you got to do this perk package, and then you can edit this one, but you can't edit that one. So if I go to options, there's no options here, but this one has options to edit. But then like you got to do this other one where you can equip it and then you can edit it. It's that is not intuitive in any way, and this isn't explained thoroughly within the menus. It shouldn't be like me have to go in there and test it. Okay, after 3 minutes you get your first perk, which is your bonus perk, and then your last one you get after a certain amount of time, blah blah blah. Get kills, you reduce that time. That should be very explicit here. And on top of this, I mean, in the betas, they never show these things, so we won't be able to see the camo challenges until the game actually launches, so there's not really much to talk about that. We won't know what they look like, what they work like, any of that type of stuff. We've kind of just given a brief overview. Even if we go ahead and look at the progression here, in the overall progression, you can kind of see what we're going to unlock for the rest of the beta. But in the game, they typically go up to level 55, so there's going to be 25 levels of 2 items or so that we're going to be unlocking items that are not currently visible in this build and will be completely hidden essentially until that day the game drops and everything starts at level 1. So those are kind of like my general thoughts. I know it's kind of like I bounced around a little bit. I focused on the good and then kind of went down a lot of the bads, and kind of my perspective of why those things are. For the vast majority of things, they're not going to change. So if you like Modern Warfare 2019 and you feel like you like some of the changes they've made, you're probably going to like this game because it's Modern Warfare 2019 too. Essentially, it's that. It has nothing to do with the golden days of Call of Duty for Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 that we had way back when. Systems are completely different. The philosophies are completely different. And a lot of those things are built around the casual. If you are somebody who's a hardcore COD player, you're probably still gonna buy it. You got to level up the guns anyways to use them within Warzone and likely DMZ, because there are loadout weapons within those game modes that you will want to min-max and get the best of the best if you're going to be playing those modes, so you're not at a disadvantage. Those things will still be there so you can have your pretty little blueprint or whatever you want. Everything will still be making tons of money, and there's gonna be a lot of cosmetics in place to make that happen. So hopefully you guys are enjoying the beta yourself. If not, no big deal. You don't have to buy the game. We still got a lot of times. Hopefully they announce some changes between weekend 1 and 2, but I'm guessing they will likely not. Appreciate y'all spoiling the content. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.